If that means I've got a chance because I've built my roster better, or my strategy's better, or my execution is better, or I just have more toys, fine. If I lose it for all of those same reasons, that's also okay. What's not okay is for me to look at a battle and just go, this isn't even close. So let me lay it down for you real quick here, ladies and gentlemen of the tribe. How you doing? You're looking beautiful, by the way. So this video came across my feed, and I thought I'd give it a watch, and you and I can decide together, does Nooch, Papa Star Wars Daddy-O himself, does he have a point? Let's find out, shall we?
150, 160 people on your tune all platforms, and every single person agrees.
There's the humble brag from the humble dad. Yep, Nooch is killing it with viewership.
Every single person agrees.
Yeah, we have, what, 100 plus combined YouTube plus Twitch viewers, and literally everyone agrees with you. Pretty telling, I would say. All right, everybody agrees with Nooch's point. Let's go ahead and see what his point is.
Specifically with Carbonite Grand Arena, it does extend a little further than that, but Carbonite Grand Arena is a complete disaster right now. I'd
say complete disaster is maybe a little bit extreme, but yeah, it's a mess out there. It's a mess out there. I know I'm not a Carbonite 4 player. I'm a Carbonite 2 player, all right? I'm just trapped in the body of somebody that's in Kyber 1. No, my alt account, my free-to-play alt account, that's about 8 months old. That guy is rocking in Carbonite 2 right now. And yeah, a lot of the matchups are kind of dumb.
First round of Grand Arena here.
Let's see.
I go in, and here's my roster. I've got a roster. I'm a free-to-play account. I'm at 1 million galactic power. Okay. I have 1 relic character pad at 1 Obi-Wan, and then Master Qui-Gon at Gear 12. So then, we go into our first round against Robert Toast. Robert Toast is at 9 points.
Yeah, okay, so like he's got a 10 million GP opponent, basically. 9.5 million versus 1. I've had this sort of matchup, not that frequently, but I have had them. More often, you're facing off against someone that's like 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, which don't get me wrong, that's still absurd. But let's keep going.
0.5 effing million galactic power.
Nearly making the Star Wars dad swear there. You know it must be bad.
9.5 million, 9.5 times the size of my roster. 9 times the size of my roster. 9 times the size of my roster.
Yeah, realistically, if you have this sort of matchup, you're not going to win. It's as simple as that. You can't win unless they just don't do anything. Here? Why does he have an R9 IG-11? Just say no. Mission literally sacrifices thanks to the Zalbar army. But still, 9.5, this is some weird setups over here. I'm kind of curious about this Toast bloke. I want to know, why is Robert Toast down here? Is this guy somebody that just doesn't care about GAC? Or is this guy that's like been absentee for weeks and weeks and weeks? He's got good win rates, but check it out. So he didn't sign up, right? Yeah. Didn't sign up. So he never plays 3s, by the looks of things. Oh, well, no, that's not true. He just drops out of a lot of 3v3. What are the people the people he loses to, right, are when he just can't be asked. Who's JM Goose? Yeah, this guy's got 1.6 million. So this guy loses when he just can't be asked to do anything. He either doesn't show up at all. He's winning these ones because they're also not showing up, right? If they'd have showed up and got 10, they'd have won, right? This guy didn't stand a chance. He's not placing a score, not placing a score, not placing a score, not placing a score, not placing a score. Play score, play score, play score. Didn't even sign up. Placed a score, didn't do anything. But I mean, even 420 banners. What did he do? Take out 2 teams. He took out 2 teams, and that's it. Done. All right, so this guy he clearly doesn't care about GAC. And yeah, occasionally you're just going to get the shitty end of the stick, basically, right? You're grabbing onto that poop handle, and yeah, you just got nothing. You just got nothing. You have to hope that he's feeling, maybe this time I don't play. Well, I mean, I get it. That's kind of crap. The Zalbar Cron, I will say, it's a lot of fun. I'm having more fun with it now than when it first came out.
I don't even have her Zeta applied for Grand Arena. Here comes the Zalbar Cron, everybody.
And you're dead.
Oh, I got a turn.
Congratulations. 86,000? Not bad. I get it. This experience is not enjoyable for anybody. Like, the fight 9.5 million GP player who comes in and he sees he's facing off against a guy with 1 million GP, he knows he doesn't have to do anything. He knows he doesn't really care about GAC. He just occasionally turns up if he feels that way inclined to battle. But the problem is from the perspective of that 1 million GP player, if that's their introduction to what Grand Arena Championships is like, arguably the best game mode in the game, right? If that's their first and only experience of this game mode, they're like, what the hell? Why do I even bother to play this? I've got zero chance of getting anywhere in this sort of game mode because I'm just going to be thrown up against these guys that have got vastly superior rosters, and the only way I hope of getting any sort of win or any sort of gratification is if they don't show up. And that's not a good and conducive way to sort of promote their favorite game mode.
You know, it's funny. Last round, we actually had 3 decent matchups, and we just get loaded with that one right off the bat there. 11 points. Oh, I go out.
So, I mean, he did acknowledge, right? Last week, he had 3 decent matchups, and he won all 3 of them. And that's great, right? You know, that's... You want to feel like if you've got you've got like some form of competitive environment that you can actually have some good matchups. He's not saying it's exclusively always happens, but it does happen a lot, and probably far too frequently.
I get my points, I exit out. I don't have any fun. I'm not engaged with your game mode. And it's no fun. This happened.
I think it's actually worse than that, because I think that if somebody is coming into this game, they've hit level 85, you know, they've got 300,000 GP, 400,000 GP, whatever it happens to be at that point, right? And they've watched a couple of streamers playing Grand Arena, and they're like, wow, that's a really cool, fun game mode. I can't wait for me to be able to go in here and face off against other people and you know, use my teams and all this sort of good business. If that is their exposure to the game mode, they're going to be, like, not engaged with it. They're going to actively dislike it. Do you know what I mean? They're going to actively... It's like sending toddlers to go fight in the MMA, and their first person that they face off against is a non-washed-up Conor McGregor. It's like, it's not fair. It's not fair. They're not going to enjoy it. They're just going to get kicked in the teeth.
I'm going to say at least 50% of the time in Carbonite, and it's probably happening elsewhere as well. It's at least 50% of the time in Carbonite. Now, this round, I'm coming in at 1 million galactic power, and my opponent is at 2.4 million. Now, my opponent is still more than twice my size. Mm-hmm. My opponent is still more than twice my size. However, I have done a better job farming my roster. Mm-hmm. I have done a better job farming my mods.
Yep.
And I go in and...
Listen, man, like, last round on my free-to-play account, I'm at like 1.8, 1.9 million now, but last week I think I faced off against the guy with 4.5 million GP, and I won. Why? Because I had Executor, he didn't. I managed to clear his ground, even though he set better teams on defense. You can still punch up, right? But there is like, the more GP they have, the harder that does become, because they're going to have more relics than you, they're going to have more mods than you, they might have access to datacrons that you don't have access to. They will have better meta teams in general, unless they have just had complete brain farts whenever they've been farming their rosters and investing in terrible things like Cup. Leave the cups alone, unless you can get that $5 Relic 9 package, and then you might as well, because that's $5, bro.
I full clear him.
Yeah, there you go.
I full clear this player.
He couldn't beat the Geos. Oh,
and he goes through
rough.
2 mine. He struggles here in the back because I guess there's animation problems with Imperial Super Commando. But regardless, I get the...
Nooch being a sly boy, setting a bug team on defense.
Full clear.
Oh, you sly dog, you.
Now I'm engaging with the game mode. I'm having fun. We are being competitive. We're actually playing a PvP game mode. Mm-hmm. When it's like this. So what I'm saying to fix Grand Arena, it's not that I need it to be, you know, the original Grand Arena was within tight galactic power modes, right? It was like... Yeah, when it first came around, the only thing that mattered in GAC matchmaking was what your GP was, and all the matchups were super close in GP. Not close in competitive nature, far from it is what I would say, but very close in GP. It was not a good way of running Grand Arena, simply because it disincentivized people for investing in their roster. So if you were a person that was said, I don't know, you were in your guild and you had to invest in Hoth Rebel Soldier, because we're going back to the days that Dynasty
dinosaurs walked the earth. We had to develop, we had to evolve to get opposable thumbs to properly play this game when Grand Arena was like that, right? So those players that invested in stuff like Hoth Rebel Soldier back then, or, you know, basically invested in crappy teams for TB operations, or platoons as they were known back then, in order to help the guild climb higher in the star rankings in TB and stuff like that. They were actively punished in Grand Arena compared to players that only invested very narrow and very tall in their roster. And what I mean by that is, instead of having 10 characters at Gear 12 or Gear 8, they would have one team of 5 characters at Gear 12, an optimal level of investment with good modding in the right characters. So they would invest in stuff like a CLS team to Gear 12 with the Zetas and that sort of thing, instead of investing in crappy TB platoons and stuff like that. And they might have the same sort of GP, but you would have exactly the same amount of chance as this guy who's got the 1 million GP versus the 9.5. The disparity used to be obscene. I think when that original Grand Arena came around, my roster back then was incredibly tight. It was literally all legendary characters, basically. Their requirements and the legendary characters. And I think I went 17-1 or something stupid like that. It was ridiculous, the win streaks I went on, because people just could not cope with someone that had a very focused roster. They just had very broad rosters. Some of them didn't have a single Gear 12. They were just like Gear 8s all over the place. It was really, really easy for me, who was like, I'll only invest in really good characters, and really, really bad for everybody else who'd been doing stuff for their guild. It sucked.
If I was at 1 million, all my opponents were around 950,000 to 1,050,000. It was very tight. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I just need you to keep these 9 million galactic power accounts. For God's sake, keep them out of Grand Arena Carbonite. I don't know why this is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I've done something. I've made recommendations on this. Listen, the recommendations that I made on this is twofold, right? First of all, I think that what you need to do is, when you've got a player like Mr. Toast over here, and we've seen this guy's roster, right? We've seen what he does. We've seen how he likes to play. He just, like, sometimes just doesn't even sign up. A lot of the times, he doesn't even bother to attack. You know, he just sort of, yeah, he doesn't care. Doesn't care. And I think if a man like this frequently doesn't sign up to GAC, frequently doesn't do attacks like this, they should be placed into a delinquent league. Basically saying, hey, you clearly don't care about going into Grand Arena. We're going to lock you at whatever, you know, division and league you were in. Or maybe they'll say he's a Kyber player, so we're going to lock him at Kyber 5, right? In terms of rankings, in terms of reward structure. And then throw him into a delinquent league, which basically means this guy doesn't want to play. And the only people that go into the delinquent league are people like this, that barely touch the game. Whilst they're in that league, they will only match up with other people in that league. So other delinquent people, the people that don't want to play or can't be asked to play, will all go and face each other, right? So, yeah, you still might have that disparity in GP and matchmaking. You still might have people that just have massive GP differentials, but it won't matter because none of these players care, all right? None of these players care. And if they want to get out of that delinquent league, they just have to be joining up to GAC and attacking frequently. If they do like one championship where they turn up and they attack in every round, they'll be like, okay, we're going to move you back from the delinquent Kyber 5. You're going to go into Kyber 5. You're back in the main rotation of players. Go have your fun. And if they drop back down again, they get locked back into the delinquent league. It just keeps them out of the way of the people that actually want to play GAC. All right? Don't know if that's the solution, but that's one thing I was recommending.
This feedback has been passed along.
CG are actually pretty good at this sort of thing, right? You know, Meathead has been fantastic. He really is. He's a good community manager. He'll come out to us, he'll ask us for feedback, and he'll take it on board, and he'll often come back with questions. So, you know, he might come into my DMs and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What's your opinion on the community's feedback towards this sort of stuff? What would you do in this scenario? All that sort of business. And we feed it back, and there's a bit of a back and forth all the time, right? CG do reach out. It's just, I think the pace at which that they can actually make real tangible changes in the game is very, very slow. So hopefully they are thinking about Grand Arena. Hopefully they are prioritizing it. Hopefully they're also looking at things like Territory War, which really, really needs to be burned to the ground and redone. You know? And hopefully we're getting a new capital fleet soon, because that would be sick. But they need to have more capacity to actually action these things and do them right, I suppose. Nooch is having a moment.
I'm not a coder. I know I'm not a coder.
Me neither, brother. Me neither.
I don't need a complete rework of Grand Arena. I just need galactic power tiers.
I don't think galactic power tiers is the solution. I don't think because how can we arbitrarily say that? Look, we'll go, if I'm to go into, let's do this. Okay, so this is my free-to-play account, right? This is the current bracket that I'm in right now on my free-to-play account. I'm currently 2-0 in this bracket, and I've faced off against this guy over here, Buckets Off Club. I think I faced him in the last round. We had pretty much the same GP range, and I won because he didn't have an answer to the Executor, right? I'm trying to think. This is this Balanai guy. This is the guy I faced in round 1. 4 million GP, and I beat him as well, right? So how are we going to decide what those brackets are? Because one 4 million GP account, if I'm a 1.9 million GP account, right, and I could beat this 4 million GP account, if I had 4 million, could I beat this 7 million GP account? Do you know what I mean? It's like, you can't do it just on GP, because GP can be vastly different at the lower levels between two different accounts, right? We could see a 4 million GP account with no GLs, no capital ships. Or we could see a 2 million GP account that's got Executor, and it's got like 20 relics. It's like, so it can't just be GP. It needs to be a little bit more nuanced than just GP. What I do think is, I think the Delinquent League solves this, because it will take those players out of rotation, right? If they don't want to play, if they're just garbage, that's a different... If they're just garbage at the game, really terrible and can't win a GAC, I think that's different, because that is the element of skill-based matchmaking that we like to talk about, right? It's like, how you use your roster is just as important as the roster that you have. If you are so bad at the game, you've got like twice your opponent's GP and you can't win, you probably just suck at the game. Let's be honest, right? And yeah, maybe you should be facing people half your size because you're obviously that terrible. So I don't think that just pure GP bracketing is what we need.
Make it so that people at 3 million galactic power cannot compete in Carbonite.
But he just showed himself beating a guy that had several million, over 3 million GP, right? So you can win. And sometimes these players at 3 million GP, they're not players that like go onto Discord and go onto Reddit and go onto YouTube and find like optimal farming paths and know the characters that they need to invest in. Most players this game don't. Most players that play this game play it in isolation, and they just do it for fun, right? So they might have a really bad 3 million GP account, and they can't get out of Carbonite 4, and you throw them into a Rhodium or whatever's next, Chromium, I don't know, they're going to be well out of their depth, and they can't compete.
And if they lose so much that they're in Carbonite, they go out to some, I don't know, crap. Here you get to go into crap grinder. I don't know. You can't put the...
I think that's kind of what I was suggesting, right? Crap Grand Arena. I called it the Delinquent League because you're someone who just doesn't sign up, doesn't get it, right?
In Carbonite, you can't put them at the lowest level of Bronzium. Then when you get to Bronzium, it's 4 million. Then when you get to Chromium, it's 5 million. And when you get to Rhodium, it's 6 million.
Hope you're doing well, Nooch. I don't know. Thanks for all you do and bringing great content regularly to us.
Thank you, G-Dub. You are a gentleman and a scholar. But look, I get it, okay? I get the idea that you don't want to create incentives for people to keep their rosters small.
Okay, that is a very good point. We should never go back to that whole papered zombie situation. Those of you who don't know, Night Sister Zombie used to have an ability, which, well, it still has the ability, but it used to be you could do it at any level. Now you have to be Gear 12 to apply it. It's the infinite revive mechanic. So people used to have like a Gear 1 zombie that would die and instantly revive, and you could never circumvent the taunt. It would just constantly be there, right? So what that did was it created an environment where you are better off not investing in a character in order to gain benefits from making skewed matchups, right? In the current meta, in the current game, I don't even mean meta in terms of what are the best teams. I mean meta in terms of how to play Galaxy of Heroes. There are absolutely zero incentives right now for you to keep your GP low. Nothing in this game incentivizes that. Grand Arena doesn't incentivize it. Grow your GP, get better at the game, better teams, climb in Grand Arena, earn more daily crystals, earn more crystals for winning in Grand Arena, right? That's an incentive to grow your roster, not keep it small, because if you have a small roster, you're not going to have a good time in Grand Arena. You need to keep on investing. Same thing for TB, same thing for GAC, same thing for Fleet Arena, same thing for the raids, right? More investment means more rewards back to you. You see it in the marquee structure. Invest more in the characters as they come out. You get more rewards from era battles. You get more rewards from the actual marquee event because you have more shards. You get to earn more daily shards as a consequence. And then you can build that character quicker and faster and stronger and better and all these good things. So the game does not incentivize keeping it low. And I don't think that locking players out of individual leagues or divisions incentivize keeping your GP low at all. I don't think it has anything to do with it. It's probably just a wider issue, I guess.
Right? What I'm presenting does not do that.
No, it doesn't. No.
What I'm presenting does not. It just helps me engage with your game more.
He's absolutely right. He's 100% right in this. Like, if people want to enjoy Grand Arena, they need to have matchups that are engaging. And you can still have a matchup that's engaging with a GP differential, right? If you've got 1 million against 4 million, I can win that battle. You can win that battle. Not always, granted, but that's okay. You know, it's okay. You don't always have to win, and you shouldn't always win. Otherwise, what are we going to do? Everybody's going to win every Grand Arena ever? No, nobody wants that. You need to have some element of competitiveness, right? So, yeah.
I want to engage with the game. I want to play Grand Arena every round like this. I want to play against people like this, and that's fine. I'm 1 million, they're 2.4 million. I farm my roster better. I know the counters better. I have better mods. I beat them.
Yeah. So, I don't really care what the GP is. I don't care what the GP is. It's like an immaterial number to me, really, at this point. What I care about when I'm going into Grand Arena is that I have a chance. Right? I have a chance. If that means I've got a chance because I've built my roster better, or my strategy's better, or my execution is better, or I just have more toys, fine. If I lose it for all of those same reasons, that's also okay. What's not okay is for me to look at a battle and just go, this isn't even close. This isn't even like snowball's chance in hell. I don't want to win Grand Arena because my opponent didn't show up. And I also don't want to lose Grand Arena because he's just messing around, you know, having a good time, pretending like he doesn't even care about Grand Arena and just turning up to occasionally stomp nerds. Yeah, you got to make the game mode fun, guys. You got to make the game mode fun and feels like you've got a chance to actually do something. Doesn't mean you have to win every matchup. It just means you have to feel like you can win every matchup, you know?
Don't let these guys into my Carbonite Grid. This account should never be around Carbonite Grid. And he played.
Agreed.
Yeah, he played. He full cleared me.
Yeah. That account absolutely shouldn't be in Carbonite. It shouldn't. He shouldn't. He's there because he doesn't play most of the time, right? That's why he's there. He just barely plays. He plays like a tenth of his matches or something like that. That's why he's all the way down there. This player would be just move him into a separate league, like a non-competitive version of Grand Arena where he can get the same rewards, right? I think it has to be something that's regulated and governed, basically, because we don't want that league to be incentivized more than a normal league, right? You want to have the competitive matchups. That's why I think it should be like, you know, a tracked system where if you just don't show up or you conduct less than 3 battles every Grand Arena or something like that, right? I suppose that really depends on the bracket and the league you're in, but yeah, keep it as a method that can throw people into this delinquent league whenever they fall below that minimum barrier to entry threshold, right? And then bring them back out when they feel like they want to play Grand Arena again. They can keep all the same rewards, so they're not incentivized to just turn up once or twice a week to keep attacking so that they don't get thrown into delinquent league. I don't want them to be punished for that. I just think that they shouldn't be punishing the other players that they match up against, you know?
The incentives that are built into Grand Arena right now... I gotta go back one. I feel like the incentives built into Grand Arena right now... Where is it? Rewards. Okay. Where at Carbonite, depending on my level, I get more daily crystals. At Bronzium, I get more daily crystals depending on my level. At Chromium. So as you advance through Carbonite or through Grand Arena, you get more daily crystals. And you get more per victory too, right? Yeah, you get more per victory as well.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I was talking about earlier. This is incentivizing people to invest in their rosters, right? So what players like that Toast guy is doing is he's actively hurting himself because he could be much higher and he could be earning much more crystals, but he just doesn't care, right? Doesn't care. Yeah, it's definitely... He's totally right. It's exactly what I was saying earlier, you know? The game rewards you for investing. That makes total sense. Like, the problem here is it's a picnic. It's a problem in computer. No, problem in chair, not in computer. Picnic, right? So the problem is the player just doesn't want to engage in the game mode. He just occasionally signs up for his crystals and then maybe sometimes attacks, right? He is basically not integrating or not interacting with Grand Arena in the way that it was designed to, right? Okay. Now, there are problems, obviously, with the system because it can't account for that right now. It can't adjust for those outliers, and there's quite a lot of those outliers. Now, I think in general terms, there's not a problem. If you've got 5 million GP and you've managed to climb up into Kyber 1 somehow, right? You did that with 5 million GP and you're not cheating. I mean, basically, you'd have to be cheating. But I want to put this in theory, right? If you are able to get that high, then it's fine. The GP is irrelevant, right? If you are able to somehow outfox your opponents or outmod them or outdatacron them or something to climb that high, then you deserve to be there. It doesn't matter how much better their roster is, right? It's like you've earned that right to be there. It doesn't mean you should be in Kyber 1 and facing off against other players that are also 5 million GP. That doesn't make sense. Okay, so I'm not going to finish off the end of this video because I can see where it's going. But in essence, Nooch and I completely agree in the concept of what is wrong with Grand Arena, right? We just disagree with how to solve the solution, which is probably why these things take a while to filter through. I don't think that arbitrarily setting in GP brackets is what we need. I think we just need to filter out the problem children, right? Because if you are good enough to take down people that are much higher in GP than you, then you are good enough to be facing those types of accounts. It's as simple as that, right? You shouldn't be forced to not fight off against those guys that you can beat because they've got more GP. If you've proven you are that good, you've built your roster that well, you've got your mods so good, and you've built the datacrons in the right way that you can take down people twice your GP level, which can happen. Obviously, at the lower brackets, it's easier. You know, the lower GP thresholds, it's easier. Then GP isn't the issue. The issue is when players do not try and they do not engage properly with Grand Arena, they are going to fall. It's just like if you put it in soccer terms and you have someone like, I don't know, Real Madrid, right? Imagine Real Madrid have in their soccer match, right, their football match, all the players just sat down on the pitch and let the other team just score goals on them, right? They didn't even turn up. Or they sign up to the match and they all just sit in the den. Nobody actually comes out, and there's just another team on the pitch, and they're just like, okay, well, we're just going to kick the ball in the goal, and we're going to win, right? They would get demoted through the leagues in the exact same way. They would also lose a crap load of fan base, right? Crap load of fan base, because nobody wants to watch that. That's not entertaining, but that's neither here nor there. But in realistic terms, if they just signed up, agreed to do a match, and then never played anything, or they just all sort of like sat down and twiddled their thumbs as the other team just scored on them constantly, they get demoted all the way down to the bottom. Now, is Real Madrid still a far better... Yeah, they go all the way down to several leagues, right? If they chose to actually play a match, they would probably destroy anybody that they came across, and they'd slowly climb their way back up, right? Of course, that's how it would go. That's the same thing as Grand Arena. It's the same thing as Grand Arena. We're all playing in the same leagues and divisions. We're all have an equal opportunity to face each other. The problem is when giants don't try and they mess around. They don't care, right? That's the issue that we need to address. Arbitrarily locking GP is not the solution, in my opinion. We just need to throw them into their own league. Just be like, go be in a delinquent league. Have fun. Sweet. Let's see if CG does something.